Hey, Durango Garth here. And I just want to make this quick video. I'm sitting here in my hotel room here in Florida, just finishing up a business slash pleasure trip. And 53 years old and been married 28 years as of tomorrow. So, yes, I'll be home with my beautiful wife, Kirsten, of 28 years. I'm also a father of a 27-year-old daughter and a 23-year-old son and a 29-year-old son-in-law and a grandfather to my favorite grandson, Soren, who's 2 years old now. And I love it that he calls me Papa. So I'm originally from Indiana. And you say, well, how did you get to Durango, Colorado? That's where I'm from. That's where my base of operations is. Well, simply put, my brother talked me into getting into investment real estate right out of college. Actually, 2 summers before I got out of college, I started doing some stuff with him, i.e., mowing his grass. But he had some property there in Indiana. So I got into real estate property management with him, managing his property there in Indiana. We took a trip to Jackson Hole for a ski trip. We got out there and we were like, man, this is an amazing place. Wouldn't it be so cool if we could live here? And then we had an epiphany. We said, we should do it. Let's do it. And within the year, we ended up in Colorado on the Front Range. And it was a time and a season that was easy to get into rentals because everybody had been scared 7 years before from the multifamily reset, I suppose, if you will. A lot of people had been burned, and so they didn't have vision. Whenever you're afraid, you don't have vision for the future. Well, we hadn't been burned, so we had a bunch of vision for the future, so we could see the opportunity in these properties. So we started doing that. We did that in Fort Collins. We did that up in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And then landed in Durango, Colorado, because I went down there to manage a property that we bought. And it was 2 weeks after I had just gotten married to my wife. So we moved down there, ran that place for 4 years. We sold it. I ended up selling everything. There's a lot more to the story, but bottom line is this. I didn't have any good mentors at the time. We didn't have the resources, YouTube videos, and everything that's available these days. So shoulda, woulda, coulda, but the mistake I made is we sold that property that created passive income for me of about $10,000 a month. Yes, made a decent chunk of change at the time, but I wasn't able to reinvest it. So if you don't reinvest it, that means you're out of it. So I was out of multifamily. And I had enough money and then the other mistake I made is when we sold that, I sold my income, right? I think I said that. So I sold my income and then I didn't reinvest it. So I had enough money that I figured I could last 3 or 4 years if I did nothing. So I'm like, I need to get a job. Ended up landing in real estate sales because I thought that would be pretty easy and I could do it. Then I went to the School of Real Estate Hard Knocks, 1997, for the next 3.5 years, trying to create traction. Yes, I'm a slow learner. I finally built some traction up, figured out my niche, which would be in investments. I understood investment, real estate, fix and flips, and ended up working with a lot of builders and developers and investors and first-time home owners. Really enjoyed that. And from 2000 to 2008, was just having an amazing time in the industry, enjoyed it, made a lot of money. But then, as a lot of you know, 2008 crash just was a big rug pull for me and learned a lot of hard lessons in that. And for the next, I would say 5 years, 5 to 7 years, I worked the hardest I ever worked in my life in the foreclosure industry and so on and so forth. Got back into sales. I had actually deactivated my license, put it on ice for a couple of years because I couldn't keep up with the continuing education. But then I had another epiphany with my 14-year-old son, because he told me basically that, Dad, you're never home, and when you are, you're not very nice. And oh man, that just broke my heart. And I thought, God, I got to do something different here. So I came up with a plan, and that was I need to create passive income. And I remember I used to do multifamily. I used to have a passive income, and I used to have a lot more time for my family. So my main goal actually was passive income. And in the meanwhile, rebuild a sales business back in real estate. You know, I wouldn't mind taking another commission here or there. So I joined back up with my company that had kind of evolved from Prudential into Keller Williams during the tough years just for survival. The Keller Williams model worked a lot better. Anyways, was there for a couple years. Then there was a young man who ended up recruiting me. I had recruited him to Keller Williams, and he had interned with me when he was in high school. I actually drove him around with my kid, drove him to school during that time frame. Now he was like close to 30 at that point. Had gotten his real estate license and was working at Keller Williams. Ended up going to EXP. He started talking to me about EXP. I had no interest in it at all. But just because I knew him, I trusted him, I like, okay, he pushed me like, at least watch the videos. Well, you watch the videos, you can't unwatch that. And so at that point, I realized it would be wise and smart and make sense for me to move to EXP, but I'm just lazy. I don't want to. It's working just fine here. I'm rebuilding my life as it is, and it's going well. But he kept pushing me to do the right thing, and I finally did it. And I'm so glad that I did. So moving over to EXP was like a big game changer for me, because all of a sudden I was pretty burned out with everything that I'd gone through the last 7 years. But it like reignited me. Why? The relationships, the collaboration that I experienced that I hadn't experienced at any other company, which I'd only been really at one for the last 20 years. It just happened to switch from Prudential to Keller Williams. But I had, just speaking with the other agents, it's obvious that nobody else has experienced this kind of collaboration. And the time that people invest in you. Why? Because we're all owners in the company. We all benefit when you do well, they do well. And anyways, it just builds this incredible culture. And so in the meantime, so I've gone, after moving to EXP, it put a fire under me, and there's people, masterminds, where we get together. And anyways, it's given me the ignition to not only just survive, pay my bills, and have a decent life, but now I'm motivated to create generational wealth for my kids and my grandkids. So I went from 0 multifamily units to now we own and operate 324 multifamily units. And I did that with bad credit, with no credit lines, and with no money. Because I figured out how to leverage my commission and relationships, so on and so forth. And that's what I'm passionate about. Number one, what I'm passionate about is real estate agents creating some sort of a plan that gives them some resources when the times get tough. And between you and me, this feels a lot like October 2007 here in June of 2022. Feels like we're right about ready to go off the cliff. I kind of say it like this. It's like when you're on a roller coaster ride and you're in the front seat and you just go tick, 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 and then you're starting to go over and you're here and there's still some other cars, it hasn't dropped yet, but you're looking over the cliff. That's kind of how it feels. I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. But why not do something at a minimum where when you're just doing your basic sales, real estate sales, making your commissions, builds stock and revenue share. So if you're interested in that, and if you're interested in leveraging your commission, leveraging your relationship, learning how to get into multifamily and passive income, because that's what I bring to the table, as well as what EXP brings to the table with building your business, collaboration, anything you want. There's so much education available on how, and then the KV core and the leads and the generation. Lead generation is what I meant to say. It's absolutely amazing. So if you have any interest in that, because I'll tell you this, it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to get off their butt and move brokerages, but I guarantee you and promise you that if you're willing to look into it and you're willing and you have some interest, click down below. Let's get on a call, sign up with my Calendly, and I'll tell you more. Awesome. Thanks, guys.